Ron Strobel, Sergeant at Arms. Thank you. Our invocation this morning is by Liz Ramsey.
Good morning, Rotarians. Now let's bow. Father, thank you for the grandparents of this nation, the praiseworthy men and women now and of the past who have invested their lives in making this a great country. We owe them a debt of gratitude, dear Lord, and we pause to honor them now. We thank you all for your dedication to the welfare of the United States of America. We bless them and for their love of country and commitment to make it an even better place for those who would come after them. Now let's pause for a moment in memory of those who have given their lives to that end and for those grandparents that are present right now. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Liz. And now to lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Mike Swain.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And in Chris Barker's absence, I will introduce, we have a guest today, Mandy Connolly. It's our guest of Evan McCauley. This is Mandy's second visit, and we hope that her visits will turn into membership. So welcome, Mandy. And our president, Father Joe Boysel.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll take that. I was, my wife and I were at the Rod Stewart concert last night until like midnight. So if you could just keep it down a little bit, you know, I'm joking mostly. All right. We have a sign up sheet for the beer garden. The much aforementioned beer garden, which is August 12 and 13. That's a Friday and a Saturday. And so it's coming around. If you could sign up and help with that. Patrick, have we located a grill yet? Do we have a grill? So we still need a grill. Otherwise, we're gonna be handing out cold hot dogs and brats. And I don't think sales will go so well. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but yeah, if anybody has a grill that we can borrow, see me about that, will you? I want to take a moment and recognize someone. What happened to James? Where is there? You are. I want to thank James Field. For 8 years, he has run our AV equipment. During the whole pandemic, he helped us get set up on Zoom, make sure that we got our meetings out to everyone, and has just done, you know, yeoman's work in this field. Thomas has agreed to take over for a year, so he'll be our new AV guy back there. But James, stand up. Take a well-deserved round of applause. We certainly are grateful for all that you've done. Terry, do you have something about school supplies? I see them up here.
North Hill, the North Hill School up in Akron, we're donating this month to their school supplies backpack program. So anything that you can do, crayons, colored pencils, paper, anything that, you know, kids would use at school, they will be very grateful for.
She old fashioned like that. Where is Phil? Phil, do you still need a moment? You'd asked last week for a moment today. Do you need that still, or?
Can I do it next week?
I'm sure you can. So we're going to punt on that one. All right. And Kelly, do you have anything on the cabin?
So I apologize. It's been, it seems like a long time since we talked about the scout cabin. So oh, that went quick, huh? So I'm just going to give you a real brief update as to where we're at with the scout cabin. In fact, I'm going to be leaving here early to go meet some folks that are actually going to hopefully help us on the cabin. So back just as a starting point, back in 2018, long before we were wearing masks, Andy Morse assumed or assembled a group of Rotarians, scouts, city leaders, and some others to work on the cabin. So we really started this campaign back in 2019 and it's in two pieces. We came up with the vision, which I think really the vision came from this group. And if we could flip to the next slide. Here we go. This is what we did. So everybody in this room, everybody who's a Rotarian, you should all stand up, look at one another, and you should all applaud. This is the largest project that Rotary has ever done. I've been in Rotary since the 90s. Since this Hudson Rotary was formed, we've never done a project, not only of the scale of the dollars, but the scope of the work as well. So yeah, that's an applaud to everyone in this room and everyone who's a Rotarian. You give yourself an applause. These were the technically 4, but actually 5 donating groups that we created back in 2019. We really started this campaign in November of 19, November of last year, I apologize. And Friends of Scouting would essentially be anybody who is an individual that wanted to donate to the campaign. Scouting, self-explanatory, I think. Corporate, which we never actually got off the ground. We never really pulled that campaign. Government really was the monies that we received from Christina Roble. And then foundations, primarily our own foundation, made up that last one. Other really were monies that I didn't realize, but were set aside many years ago for the cabin that were in another financial institution that we brought over. So today we are about 124% of the monies that we needed to raise, which was $200,000, which was our goal. That's kind of incredible. If you could flip to the next slide. We engaged this month the group, the Peninsula Group, to help us with not only the scope of the cabin, so what do we need to be repaired, who will do those repairs, what are the costs of those repairs, what are the timelines, all of those items. They have done, obviously, as everyone knows, they're also involved in the project that's also downtown for the Baldwin House project. We will be meeting with them this month, and we probably will report back to you guys in late August when all of that has been formulated so that we can tell you, these are the things that will be done. This is where the monies will go. These are the contractors that will do this work. And these are the timelines in which the project will be finished. And hopefully, knock on some wood, that next year at this time it is completed and that we could do the open house kind of at the anniversary the open house was done in 1931. So keep your fingers crossed. And I think that's it. I don't think there's a slide beyond that, just the cabin. So if there's any questions, feel free. I'd be more than happy to answer them, but I just wanted to give everybody an update. The other piece that you should know is that a very small percentage of this money is pledged. Most of this has actually been raised and is sitting in our foundation. So the pledge piece, the largest being the monies that are coming from the state, those won't actually come to us until September, and that's by virtue of statute in Ohio. But I feel pretty good about the monies that have been pledged, that those will get converted to cash in a pretty short period of time. Any questions? Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Yes, thank you so much, Kelly, for your hard work and all that. That's really important. All right, so I'm going to get into just a little bit of a talk here about my year upcoming as president. It's going to be like really, 30,000 feet above, not square feet, 30,000 feet above the earth. It's much more theoretical than pragmatic and practical. So you'll just have to fill in the blanks along the way. But yeah, here we go. I'm hoping this is going to work. It might be a little slow from back here. I was university president for a number of years, and I like to run my own PowerPoint because, there's things that are going on. So let's see if it works. Are we up and going? Yes? I guess it's not. So we bring up the next slide. And we'll probably have to bring these up if we could just there's like bullet points, but yeah, so this is Jennifer Jones. Jennifer is the first female president of Rotary International. She's a Canadian. And I think it was back in March, maybe. It was cold out and rainy. And I went to Columbus for a president-elect training couple days, maybe a weekend. I can't remember what it's like. Terry, you can't wait. It's going to be a blast. Yeah, so much fun. And anyway, Jennifer was our speaker, our keynote speaker at that event, which was really quite a catch because, she's Rotary International president, and we're just, one club or a few clubs in Ohio, and yet we got her, and she was really great. And you can see all about her bio here. She offered 4 presidential initiatives and her whole theme for this year is imagine Rotary, imagine what it could be. And her imagination was this, that Rotary would be advancing our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, creating a welcoming club experience, empowering girls, and expanding our reach. And when I saw that, at first, I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Who's not for all these things? But then I also sort of cringed because I know that some language comes with political baggage, and I don't do politics. I like it. I find it interesting, but I'm not a partisan. I'm not on anybody's side. So let's try this next slide here, Thomas. Thank you. And so here's how I'm going to imagine Rotary. This is my imagination, which comes from a different source. And if you go to the next slide here, it helps me to organize my thoughts around people who are heroes to me. And my first one is my mother. My mother passed away in 2018 of a stroke at her desk, still working. She was an amazing woman. She was clever. She was funny, brilliant. She was passionate, and she raised me and my 2 brothers by herself. So, my whole life, she was it. I was raised not just by my mother, but all her other single mother friends. So all these women kind of had a massive influence in my mind and thinking. And Thomas, the next slide then. But then here are 4 other heroes. And today I want to tell you how these 4 people have affected my thinking in terms of sort of the same values that I think Jennifer expressed in her imagining of Rotary, but maybe in a little nuanced way. So let's go, and I'll kind of go through these. You can pull up all these bullets if you want, Thomas. The first one is John Wesley. I don't know, I do my work on a Mac and I switch it over to a PC and it doesn't always work right. But John Wesley was an Anglican clergyman like I am. He was in the Church of England. I'm in the Anglican Church in North America, but the same communion, the same thought life. He's 18th century Church of England. And he formed these societies that he called them Methodist societies. In fact, the name was given to him. It was sort of a derisive term. They made fun of him and his friends because they had this method of developing their spiritual life. And he basically encouraged Methodists to deepen their spiritual lives through scripture, prayer, and the sacraments, what any other Anglican would do. But then he also encouraged them to be at work in the world, to bring moral rectitude to the greater society. So one of the things they did was the Methodists developed Sunday schools. Sunday schools were not for the intention of teaching religion to children. They were founded to teach children how to read and write and do arithmetic, because in the 18th century, children worked in factories, and they worked in factories 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. And the Methodists said these children need to learn. They need to learn to read and write, and they need to be able to do math. And so they began to develop Sunday schools to teach children. They worked to end child labor. They were the first abolitionists on both sides of the Atlantic. They worked to free people from poverty and debtors' prisons. So Wesley's appeal was both about people's personal responsibility, help a person learn to read and write, do for themselves, And then also in a greater way, impact society by saying, you know, we can stop the exploitation of people. We can have people treated more fairly. And his greatest quote here, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as ever long as you can. I don't care, you know, what your religious or you know, political background is, you got to get on board with that, right? I mean, that's good stuff. So John Wesley, one of my major heroes in life. All right, next slide. Bring up all these as well, if you would, Thomas. This is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I don't know, anybody ever heard the name Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Yeah, a few of you. All right, good for you. All right. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, 20th century, during the time of the Second World War. His family was a very secular family. They were like my family. They were attached to a church, but never went. We went to church on Christmas and Easter, and never in the same year. So, you know, that's sort of the way that we did things. And his family was a lot like that. He had a twin sister. His twin sister married a Jewish man. And Bonhoeffer, even though his family was really secularized, his father, this famous psychiatrist, he decided he was going into theology. Well, he went into theology and wrote a dissertation at 22 years old. I wrote a dissertation, it was painful. And he did this at 22. One of the greatest theologians of the 20th century was a man named Karl Barth. Barth read Bonhoeffer's dissertation, Communion of Saints is what it's called. And he said of Bonhoeffer's dissertation that he wrote at 22, this is a theological miracle that anybody could even write this, let alone at that age. Bonhoeffer's an outspoken critic of the Third Reich. He was against everything they were for. He was on radio speaking out against him when the Gestapo cut off the radio and transmission and wouldn't allow his speech to finish. He was such a critic that his friends snuck him out of Germany because the Nazis had full control of the country, and they were afraid that he would be executed. And so he leaves. He's out of the country, and he's in New York City at Union Seminary. And it comes to him that, you know, I can't be here. I can't do this. I can't run away. So he leaves New York City and goes back to Germany, saying, if I will not suffer with the German people during the war, I'll have no part in rebuilding after the war. So he goes back into Germany, and not long after, he is arrested, placed in a prison. They think that he might have been conspiring to do something wrong. We have a serious suspicion that he was, even though he's a pacifist, that he was involved in a plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler because he thought that this was necessary. Well, 2 weeks before his prison camp was liberated, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was taken out and hanged for treason. And so he dies as a martyr of the 20th century. And so this next slide, on my right, your left is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. On my right, your left is Dietrich Boysel, my youngest son. I happened to see him sitting in the living room one day wearing my round glasses, and I'm like, oh my word, it's uncanny. And so I took a picture of him. His name is Dietrich James, and James was one of the first martyrs in the Bible. So be careful, you know. All right, so the next slide. You know this fellow, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I remember reading a letter from a Birmingham jail when I was a graduate student and thinking, oh my word, you know, how was it that he had to write this letter? How was it that he had to write this letter to white clergymen in the city of Birmingham? And what he said, but it was so powerful. And in this first quote, how does one determine when a law is just or unjust? Any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. Now, if you just follow that train of thought about the issue between just and unjust laws and the way that society functions, what uplifts a human being, what gives dignity to a person, these are the things that are just and good and that we ought to champion. In the dream speech where he says, I have a dream, you know this line undoubtedly, that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This is the idea that he has, and I think this idea is still worthwhile today. that we continue to look to ways to make people validated and valued because of the content of their character. And then, of course, the last one, we will be able to, by advancing the ideas in the dream speech, he concludes, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, he's saying in the 60s, so men are people, right? Black men and white men, black people, white people, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. This is the goal. This is the trajectory that Dr. King had and that I certainly share. All right, one more slide. Anybody here know Anne Lamott? Oh my word, you have to read her. She is fantastic. She's brilliant. I call her a joyful, witty contrarian, and she is. She'll turn things and make you see the world in a different way, and make you laugh and inspire you. You have to check her out. I love these quotes. So I just gave you some quotes about her. Lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining. Oh my, wouldn't that be great? Just for Rotary, we don't have to go around doing everything. We just have to stand there and shine and be light so that people see us. You can either practice being right or being kind. This is also a good quote for married people. You might nuance that a little bit. You can practice being right or being happy. You can't have both of them. Yeah. I just try to love and serve everyone and bring everyone water and lend an ear. That's what Jesus said to do. Yeah, that is kind of it. All right, one more here. We have a few more quotes from her on this next slide, Thomas. I love this. I have thought such awful thoughts that I cannot even say them out loud because they would make Jesus want to drink gin straight out of the cat dish. Yeah, right? I too have had those thoughts, and I understand her sympathies here. I like this one. You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. Yes, they should have. They had an opportunity and they blew it. So you tell the truth. You can safely assume that you've created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do. The quote actually goes on, and I think it's in Bird by Bird, the book that she wrote, and has the same political opinions that you do. Oh, yeah, that one hurts, doesn't it? But yeah, she'll kind of push you to the edge and make you rethink a lot of things. All right, so next slide here. So we're going to imagine a different approach, perhaps to diversity, equity, inclusion, and less the oppressor versus the oppressed. This is the sort of Marx idea, identity politics, where Marx talked about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. For Marx, everything was about power. So, the bourgeoisie, the aristocrats, the wealthy, they had all the power. What you need to do was take the power away from them, rip it out, put it in the hands of the proletariat, and life would be grand. Really, it was. That's what he said. But we see that it doesn't actually work out that way, because in the societies that tried this in a large way, the Soviet Union, Maoist China, so on, you have death and destruction. Stalin, a single death is a tragedy. 1 million dead is a statistic. You can get away with that. I always thought Hitler was like the worst person maybe ever, certainly of the 20th century. Hitler is responsible for 20 million dead. That's a lot of dead people. Stalin, 60 million. Mao, 100 million. That's a lot of bodies piled up, and a lot of hatred. So less the oppressor and the oppressed, more seeing the world as a community of humanity. This is the way that I kind of am oriented towards inclusion. Comes from Leviticus, from Moses to the children of Israel. You shall love your neighbors yourself. There you go. Just do that. Love your neighbors yourself. This story in the New Testament. Jesus, a faithful Jew, is asked, which is the greatest commandment? And he says, you know the law. How do you read it? Tells a story about the Good Samaritan. But the man who came up and asked him would wear this little box on his head and another little one on his hand. And inside that little box are two passages of scripture. One is Leviticus 19:18. The other comes from the Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. This is how do you read the law? What's in your box on your head? This is how we read it. And so I think this approach fits more snugly with this four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I think this approach, seeing humanity as a community, that we're all sisters and brothers, that we are what Dr. King said, we can all join hands, whether we're Protestant or Catholic or atheist or whatever, and be a community. And there's this fellow, Martin Buber. Does any of you are familiar with him? He's an Austrian Jew from the 20th century, and a philosopher who dealt with this whole way of doing conversation, a philosophy of conversation. And he said the best way is the I, thou. You can either do a conversation as me and you and me, or we can do it as me and an object, this podium. It's a thing. If I don't like it, I can kick it, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't, it feels no pain. It has no personality. It has no humanity. We can kick a ball. It's a thing. If we treat people like things, then we will be destructive and harmful to them. But if we treat people as humans, relationship of person to person, then there's mutuality and reciprocity, and we value humanity. And so I love Martin Buber's approach, and I think that's the way we go. Okay, next slide. I've already covered that. That's good. So, learn from an anti-hero. Did anybody watch Mad Men? Crazy about Mad Men. He was terrible. This guy, Don Draper, is a terrible person. But my mother told me something else. You can learn from everybody. Nobody's completely useless. They can at least be a bad example. And in a lot of ways, Don Draper was a bad example. But I love this line. If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. And when he does this, it's kind of funny because he's writing ads for Lucky Strike cigarettes in the show, and all this data is coming out from the government on the health of cigarettes and tobacco. And he's in a meeting with the people from Lucky Strike, and they're all hand wringing, and they want to know how he's gonna spin it. And he says, well, let's just change the conversation. Tell me about how do you make your tobacco? And the guy goes through the process, and he says, and then we toast it. He said, there you go, Lucky Strike, it's toasted. And all of a sudden, the whole conversation changes. Don Draper, his ideas might not be always the best one, but the idea that if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. And that's what I try to do. All right, one more. So I want to imagine this, a nuanced approach, okay? That we begin with an ethos of hospitality. We welcome all people. You can bring all these up, Thomas. We can embrace an egalitarian spirit, that we see all people as equal, that we seek to be servants of peace, doing no harm, and always model tolerance. Tolerance begins with humility. Somebody said to me recently, do you know what it feels like to be wrong? Like, oh yeah, you feel so bad when you find out no. It feels exactly the same as being right until you find out. Once you thought you were right, but you were wrong. And you were so sure of it. Yes, it feels exactly like being right until somebody reveals the truth to you. So just because I think something or you think something doesn't mean it's true. It means that we think that it's true. And so embracing humility, that I don't know everything, the person I'm talking to may know more than me about something, is a great posture to have. There's a few more down here on the bottom. I think there we go. One more. Okay, so what do I get to offer? What can I do? How is my year of being president going to be guided? Well, these kind of values right here, hospitality, egalitarian, peace, tolerance. And then I try to, bring joy, to bring hope and bring seriousness. But at the same time, be frivolous because you can take yourself too seriously. So I don't want to do that. I think in my lifetime, I'm not really political, I'm not, but there are two politicians, I think, who have embodied this well for the nation. And they come from two different parties. The first one is Ronald Reagan, and the second one, Barack Obama. They did this. They had an ability to be both serious and hopeful and joyful, And they rallied a nation behind them, both of them doing that exceptionally well. Policy is something you can quibble about elsewhere, but in terms of their personality and the way they guided the country, they certainly did those things. All right, so there's my view for the way to imagine Rotary. What kind of questions do you have for me? Well, that was nice. Okay, so you'd be first there, Mimi.
Okay, given all that, right now, in the eyes of our nation, women are things. So my question, I guess, is as collective as Rotary and as our new international president, how are we going to address that? Because underneath the things thing are a whole series of fundamental questions about democracy and accountability. And I know that there are politics in the church, because been there, done that. Politics are everywhere, and it has to do with perspective. So I guess I'm wondering if somebody offered a speaker here to talk about, okay, what's the way through this? How would we want to approach that?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess here's the Don Draper moment. If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. I don't agree that women are things. I have, no place for that thinking. And so I won't even talk. I mean, I don't entertain that idea. And I'm not sure that it's really a prevalent idea as it might have been. And I think that I think women have made progress, great progress. Maybe not enough, but certainly have made progress. And so they have, right. There you go. Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, it's not part of my functioning. I told you, I was raised by a single mother. I was raised by all women. Yeah, I have no problems with that. And so I don't know. I can't fix all of societal problems as 1 year being a Rotary president of a little club. I'm just going to try to make us have a better conversation. Is that fair enough? Yeah. Others?
Thank you for that. I learned quite a bit. That was really good. Thank you very much. The only thing, just one little point of clarification. As you talked about reimagining diversity, equity, inclusion, there was the implication that it was somehow associated with Marxism and the dialectic. And since we're working with DEI in the schools, there's been, and I would say outright propaganda to try and tie it to that, but it's not. it's really just trying to promote diversity, so accepting people of all different backgrounds and so forth. Equity meaning giving people equal opportunities, and then inclusion, making sure that you're not excluding anyone for reasons that just are not proper. So I just want to make clear that when you talked about not so much Marxism, it's really is not related to Marxism.
Well, yeah, let me just say, yeah, you're right. My approach, what I'm saying is the way that DEI has become very politically charged is that you can come at it from two different angles. You can come out from the Marxist angle, or you can come at it from the Judeo-Christian angle. Perhaps there's others that offer you other facets, but I'm talking about one of those two approaches. One can be, we have a group that has power, we're going to take the power away and give it to other people. That's one approach. The other is, hey, we're all in the same community of humanity. Let's make sure that everybody is included and valued. So my saying is that not that DEI is necessarily Marxist. You can take a Marxist approach, or you can take a different approach. And that's what I'm trying to say.
So done a lot of research on it because we do it. I've literally seen no school system or entity that is promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion take a Marxist approach. So, and you had a lot of good references to bravery during the Holocaust. At that time, and I'm actually reading a really good book about Nazi propaganda and their way to recharacterize movements, Jews, as something nefarious and something evil. And someone could legitimately at that time had said, you know, there's two views of Jews, those who, you know, this benevolent religion, or those who did all these terrible things. And I'm, you know, not making a statement about whether one or the other is correct or incorrect, but we would prefer this one. Well, one of them is incorrect.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, so I just worry that may perpetuate
Well, I
this
guess what I'm gonna-
concept or this
Yeah.
propaganda that DEI is somehow associated with
Yeah,
Marxism.
fair enough. Have no interest in doing that, zero at all. But you can understand, you can see just in your own life and work with the school board, how just the mention of it all of a sudden makes people light up. You know, they become aggressive because they're thinking in some term. They're attaching meaning to letters that otherwise doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Who would be against diversity? Who'd be against equity? Who'd be against like inclusion? These are
I
great values.
would have asked the same question myself, but apparently there are those that are. So, yeah, so you know, the fact that some people may misinterpret what it was
Mhm.
and push that over and over again. And again, in this book I'm reading, it's if you want to push a lie, if you push it again and again and again and say it often enough, people think there must be something to that.
Fair enough.
And so it was such a wonderful presentation. I didn't want it to devolve into this issue of somehow presenting this incorrect perspective on what the diversity, equity, inclusion efforts are by various
Right.
groups. And I would assume by the president of Rotary.
Yeah, I assume she has those same.
I
values
would
as well.
assume that she is not
Yeah,
pushing the Marxist dialectic or the,
Yeah, I assume so as well. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Your philosophy is very inspirational. I think we need some of that. Question, if you noticed in Kelly's presentation, excellent presentation, that we really haven't made much of an approach to the corporate world or the business people of Hudson. In membership and marketing, we've thought about an approach to that group. Would that be in your plan for the year to make a better effort towards a corporate membership or getting more business people involved in Rotary?
I think that's always a great thing that we would be more represented through our community rather than less. So we would have a wide, you know, in Rotary, early days, a club could only have like one person, one attorney. You only have one attorney in the group, and then only one clergyman, and only one, you know, whatever. So that it was really kind of tightly focused. You know, like we want a community that's diverse. It represents all sorts of different walks of life, but a very limited number of those. And somewhere along the line, people are like, "Well, this is ridiculous. We need to have more than one attorney. We need more than one clergyman, and we need more than one whatever." And it kind of expanded from that. I think yes, bringing in more people from outside, because this is a place where they can be a service organization that's nonpartisan, it's non-sectarian, it's non-religious. It would be a great place for communities who are looking to do service, or excuse me, companies that are looking to do service in the world, in their own community. That would be great for them to partner with us. So yeah, fantastic. That's maybe not my, you know, strong suit in that way. Or the same thing with finances. I don't even manage my own finances. I have no idea how much money as much money as my wife tells me I have. That's what I have. I don't go to finance committee at my church. I have nothing to do with money. Not because I don't like it. I love it, but you know, I'm not good with it. So I just you know, let it go. So y'all will have to take care of the money, and you know, whatever. I'll do what I can. Others.
All right, Joe. So as Rotarians, how can we help you as our president this year? And also, what are you most excited about as your year during your year as president?
How can you help me? You can help me by participating in all the events. So if we have something, have 100% participation, that would be fantastic. Oh, maybe there's some things that we can't be involved in, but the more that we can be involved, the more that we have a goal of, yes, I'm going to say yes to as much as I can. No to only a few things. Lots of yeses, few nos. That'll be a huge help to me. What am I looking forward to most? I think handing the gavel to Terry at the end of the year next year. That's like right up there with my my agenda for the year. You have 50 weeks to go. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. I think it's 49, but I'm not counting. Any others? Yeah, okay, Phil. Okay.
Father Joe, thank you so much for your vision. It's as I look back on being a member of Rotary for maybe since 1992, I don't know how many years ago, that's a long time. Tom and I joined this thing in 1992 because we started our business as a charity in the basement of a house, with just the two of us. And we thought, gee, we've got to get out. We've got to get out. And so we both decided, with Regis Smith's help, to join Rotary. And I want to tell you how much of a wonderful experience that has been. A number of objectives. One, it's meeting other people, which is good. There's a social event. It's the work that you do to help people is just awfully inspiring. And I want to say thank you for your vision of the organization. I see this next year as moving into an intellectual role in addition to our projects that are important, in one where we teach and we learn. And I look from the back of the room here, and if I judge by the color of the whiteness of people's hair, I see a lot of people that have wisdom. And
I wonder where you were going with that.
But taking that wisdom that you have and using your resources in Rotary to help teach people and be an influence in their life, I think it's admirable. And I really applaud you for what you're doing, Father Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been a huge inspiration to me and others. I know that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this group has been fantastic. I can't believe that I've been here, 2011, so 11 years myself in this group. And so I'm really thrilled and honored to be a part of it and to be more than just fellow Rotarians with you, to be friends, to see you out and about and hide my bourbon in the cart so that you don't see how much I'm buying and, this sort of, but no, to see you in the grocery store and to rub elbows with you in the community is fantastic. One of the things I like to do, and we might do quite a bit of at the end of a meeting, is stories. I grew up in a home where we were poor. We didn't have much of anything. And so, my mother and her friends, they would sit out on the porch and they would drink coffee and tell stories to one another. And I would just kind of sit there and listen, as little ones are like to do. And we didn't really have television. There was, days before cable was, around. And even when it did come around, we couldn't afford it. And so, I grew up being a remote control. My mother would say, turn that TV to channel 3. And so I'd have to turn it. No, that's not it. Turn it to channel 7. We only had 4 channels. So it didn't take long for her to kind of rotate through those. But we did a lot of storytelling, and that was a big thing. And then when I became a clergyman because I was the most ornery. You should see this not just as a vocation, but as punishment. I have penance to pay, and lots of it. I was my mother's orneriest child. And so my brother's got, other professions, great careers, and me, I have to work all the time, every day. So this is what we did. We told stories to one another. And, eventually found my way into a seminary, and one of the classes I took all these courses in preaching. One of them was storytelling. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm down with this. And we told stories a lot in that, and so it's sort of the way that I go about life, and I think that most of us do. We inhabit the narratives that we tell, and so it's important that we tell good stories and embody these bigger stories. And, I think that, the Bible gives us a big story. And I think lots of parts of human history give us big stories and how we fit ourselves in there. And so stories, but I'm also spontaneous. So you never know. I may not get a story, may not, who knows what's going to happen week to week, right? It's a come and see what happens kind of event here. But I want to tell you this one, and this is about Mark and Brenda Voss. 2014, they're going to build their dream home near Daytona Beach, Florida. And so they hired this company called Keystone Homes to come and build it, and build it they did. Mark and Brenda paid $130,000 for the lot, and then they gave Keystone $500,000 to build the house. And the house was beautiful, 3 stories, 5,000 square feet, just perfect. I mean, you look through it, it was just gorgeous. As soon as they built it and it was finished, it was already worth nearly $1 million. And so Mark and Brenda were thrilled. And so far as anyone could tell, there was only one problem with the house. And that was it was built on the wrong lot. 3 different survey companies looked at it, 3, and they all 3 signed off on the project. Yep, needs to be built on lot 11. Only thing is the bosses owned lot 12, the one right next to it. I don't know who owned lot 11, but I'm thinking they were like, all right, well done. I don't even know how you sort that out in the law, but somehow it did get sorted out. And the bosses and the owners of lot 11 swapped lots, and then they got their house and everything was good. The chief of the county building, whatever, said, this has to be a builder's worst nightmare. Yeah, right? Absolutely. Has to be. It's sort of like, I think, the way that, if you're going in for surgery. I've never had surgery. Patrick just had surgery. Did you mark your body up with a Sharpie? Because I totally would have done that. I would have, if I'm going in, it's going to be like, not this arm, not this leg. Don't even think about it. None of that. I'll be all drawn up. But it happens, people get operated on and they get the wrong body part and things. That has to be a surgeon's worst nightmare. Yeah, so I thought about, if you're going to build a house, make sure you build it on the right lot. And if you're going to do surgery, make sure you do it on the right body part. And if you're going to look for meaning in life, make sure you look in the right place. Rotarians, have a great day. Be great. Make a difference in somebody's life. Oh, yeah, there you go. I need somebody to pick it. Who's picking it? James is our school board. He has to be somewhat. You have skin in this game? All right. If it's his, we know each other. Well, now it really looks like you're trying to pick your own. All right. 599-396. 396. 396. Payout is a whopping $8. And the jackpot, $108. I'm guessing we put $100 in the jackpot to start off with. Nobody has to. Did you really pick your own 396? I can't even play like. All right. We'll try this, 599-422. Oh, there we go. Back-to-back weeks. Really? Yeah. You see the black one in there? Yep. All right. Nope, didn't get it. All right. Oh, take your money. They would have. We didn't care, right? All right. Have a great day. That one's real.
Did you find it?